Hey everybody, it's Derek. As you can probably guess, things are a bit funky over here at Dane and Derek HQ. Suffice to say, we've had all sorts of hardware and technical issues these last few weeks, and we don't have a brand new episode this week, unfortunately. So, in light of that, we're actually going to be releasing the very first episode that we ever recorded for the podcast. When we started this podcast, we wanted to make sure that we had a strong concept of what we were doing initially, so we recorded a bunch of pilots. I think 7 or so before we actually put out our very first episode. So this week's episode will be that first episode we recorded. It's called A Decade Old, and it's just really just us recounting how old we are and how we know each other and various bits and bobs and memories. It's kind of a storytime episode. It's a bit loose, so get ready for a very chill episode, and so sit back, relax, and enjoy this throwback episode while we go record some new episodes for you next week. Thank you so much for listening. We really appreciate your support, and we really appreciate that you like to listen in on our phone calls. It's kind of cool. So, here you go. Now playing A Decade Old.
The Dane and Derek Show is an uncensored, unfiltered podcast. Content warnings can be found in the episode description.
Hello, and welcome to the Dane and Derek Show, a podcast where two nerdy friends attempt to keep in touch. I'm Derek.
Yeah, and I'm Dane. I thought you were gonna go a little bit longer, so I took a sip of tea, thinking that was gonna be cool, but I was wrong.
When I looked at the writing, I realized, wow, I didn't put a period. I didn't put anything about myself. I just put, I'm Derek.
Yeah, you're Derek.
I'm Derek.
Dane. I'm like a person who writes and podcasts, and I run a library sometimes, but that's been before. That was in the before times. Now I manage an email inbox.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you do? You do things that are very interesting. So I'm gonna take a long sip of my tea and let you just talk.
Sounds good. I mean, I'm a filmmaker, a writer, and right now I, clean cameras for a big digital media company. And occasionally I use those cameras to help people film videos. And yeah, I mean, I don't podcast that often, but when I do, I guess I talk.
Hey, it's all good. Talking is important. What do you write is a good question, because neither of us said what we write.
That's a great question.
We just said we write, and that's such a broad area.
I write screenplays. What do you write, Dane?
Poetry and fiction, basically. Well, I also write nonfiction, but some of the pieces I've written that were poetry have been published in nonfiction, and some of the nonfiction I've written have been published in poetry. So I think in that particular case, the line there is very blurry. Like, I don't write biographies, and I do not write anything about like the real world. I just write about weird shit that's happened and try and make it prettier than it was.
That's quite a shift. It sounds like you've transcended a few genre categories.
Yeah, genre is bullshit. As my very favorite teacher often says. Genre is an illusion that it's a structure, I think, that we use to organize art, but it only works and is helpful so far in talking about things and describing them. I often find that the moment you start living genre like it's truth, you start closing doors to what you can do artistically. And I sound pompous as hell. Jesus. What I'm saying is, like, people should make more like high octane action musicals is what I'm saying. Like, do it. Like a
speed metal Western.
Exactly. There you go. Like, that's what I mean. It's just blend stuff, get creative. Don't let people define you.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well,
yeah.
On that note, what have you been up to, Dane?
Okay, that's such a big question. What do you mean? What do you mean when you say what have I been up to? Like,
in the last week, what have you been doing?
Oh,
in the last week, what have you been doing?
In the last week, what have I been doing? That's such a weird question now, because it's the different, like, we used to do different things on weekends and weekdays. But I kind of got into like a weird rough patch this last week. My computer died on Saturday, which I didn't love. I really didn't love that. Because I edit on Sundays and then release said episodes on Mondays. It's a terrible habit that I've fallen
Oh.
into. I know I shouldn't. I know I shouldn't do that, but I fell into that trap. I'm planning on getting out of it this week, but I had to get a new computer within like literally less than 48 hours. And I managed,
Wow.
and it's all the episode came out today and everything. But no, this past week has been one of like trying really hard and being actually in like a place to make stuff and be like happy. Like I've woken up on like the right side of the bed most days of the past week, and then life just gets in my way. And like, you know, like in a really tangible way. It's been things like coworkers falling ill, and so I have to like go put out fires there, or my computer dies, right? Like it's really external stuff. Like often I wake up and I'm like, I'm not happy, and my brain is just being mean to me. Like it's not a thing of like anything's wrong in my life. But this past week, it's like, oh no, there's like I'm just in trouble. Oh, but I did go mini golfing yesterday. Like
Nice.
my girlfriend and I and our friends who are a couple, and like we wore masks the whole time, and we were socially distancing and everything and all that good stuff. But like it's been a long time since I went to a place and like paid for a ticket to a thing. Like they didn't really hand me a ticket, you know, but I went to a front desk and was like, I would like to pay money to do something, and it was very fun. It helps that I won. I won the mini golf.
Wow.
Yeah, no, I won. I'm amazing apparently. But it was bizarre. Like it was bizarre to both do something very normal and then kind of realize that we were still being weird. Like these are people who we would hug and we didn't. Like I didn't bump into anybody by accident, even at like kind of like a public place, because it's still kind of deserted and everybody's keeping away from each other, you know? And that's sad. Like it's sad. There's something very sad about that.
Yeah.
But anyways, what about you? What the hell have you been up to for the last week?
So your comment about waking up on the right side of the bed is funny because this entire week I've woken up on the wrong side of the bed. And I've been really
Well,
grumpy all week. But I have Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood to get me through it. I'm 15 episodes away from the end of it, and I am dying to finish it. And that's been like something I've been doing like as a way to just take my mind off of things. I've been working a lot in the office, out of the office, and when I get home, I'm just so burnt out. I just want to watch anime and do nothing. But well, it sounds like we've both had weeks.
we've had them. They
Yeah,
happened. I swear.
they happened. Yeah. Well, we kind of talked about this earlier, but we talked about the stuff we write.
Mhm.
What how do we know each other? Because I mean, I'm going to assume right now everyone that's listening to this already knows us, but
Probably. I mean, probably.
yeah. And I mean, this whole idea was kind of born out of us realizing that we have been friends for a decade,
Yeah.
which is quite astounding.
Right, because we should also say we're 24. So
Yes, yeah, we're 24 at the time of this recording.
yeah. So a decade for people who are 24 is close to half of our lives. So
Yeah.
it's been a
Yeah.
minute. So yeah, so by the way, if anybody's listening to this and just like, are they just shooting the shit? Yeah, that's
That
like,
is exactly what we're doing. Yeah.
cool if you're here, but this is for us.
Yeah.
Like you're cool, and I hope you come on this journey with us. But this isn't about you. This is about me and Derek.
Yep.
So yeah, okay. So we met freshman year of high school.
Correct.
For anyone else who can do math. And we were in. Did we meet in jazz band? We must have
Yes.
met in jazz band.
That was the only class we had together. I
Yeah.
think that's the only class we've ever had together.
Yeah, we never. No.
No, there was one more, but I don't remember what it was.
I'm trying to think. Was it?
It must have been like a history
Oh,
class.
no. It was, Derek, it was aerobic walking our senior
Oh,
year.
yeah!
Yeah. For that last PE credit.
Wow. Okay. But yeah, jazz band.
Yes. We met in jazz band. Derek, you played.
I played tenor. I played tenor at the
tenor
time.
that year.
And then you switched to tenor that year.
I did. I switched from alto sax to tenor, which is funny because in college I switched back to alto. Not that really matters. But yeah, so you and I both played tenor sax, and I didn't really get to know you that year, though.
Yeah,
is the truth. I was busy that year.
Yes, you were very busy that year. We also sat on opposite sides of the arrangement because tenor 1 and tenor 2 sit opposite of each other.
Right. So for people who don't know, jazz bands, despite their original origin as a very like pop, cool, laid back music, have a lot of rules now. And I firmly blame the fact that it has been that jazz has fallen out of style, which is sort of a shame, and become the realm of schools and academia, not really the realm of like pop music. So there's like a strict seating chart for jazz bands, which is front row is saxophones always, and then behind them are trombones, weirdly, and then trumpets are in the back, and they stand, damn it, they have to stand. And then behind them or off to the side can be the drummers and the guitar players and the bass players. Essentially, that is where the cool people get to be. But if you're
and then usually get the guitars on the left and the bass players on the right, because all the bass instruments line up and all the lead instruments line up.
Right. And then so you have baritone sax on one end and with the tenor 2, and then you have tenor 1 on the other end, and then you in the middle you have in the very middle after the tenor 2 you have alto 1, and then you have alto 2 right next to them. In theory, you're only supposed to have 5 saxophones, but often whatever, it's not. It is important, but it's not important. So Derek and I were on opposite ends of the jazz band. Were you tenor 2 or was I tenor 2? Or did we swap?
So I was tenor 1, and then halfway through the year, it was pretty clear you were better than me, and so they swapped us.
Right. I want to be clear. Derek was not a bad player. I just want to. I have a music degree. We'll just say that.
Dane has a music degree. I just like being loud.
Right.
Which is why, like, more importantly, sophomore year when we were also in jazz band, I switched to tenor. I switched to baritone, and
you switched to bari.
You were, and then there was someone. Yeah, I switched to bari sax, but then how did we sit? Why did we sit next to each other? Did you switch to?
No, Derek, you forget. We moved up that year.
Did we move up?
Right, because the bari sax player from the year before.
Oh yeah.
No, the tenor.
No.
Okay, during our freshman year in the upper jazz band, we were in the lower jazz band. Also, for people who don't know, basically there are like there's like varsity versus like JV jazz bands, at least at our high school. Right. So we went from JV to varsity in our sophomore year because the tenor 1 left.
Wait, didn't they combine? So there was the freshman band, then the JV band, then the varsity band. Didn't JV and freshman combine?
They combined our sophomore year,
and that's why.
That's why we moved up. So then there was only freshman JV and the varsity band. Right. So then we moved up, and the person who had been on bari went to tenor 1 because that's what they really wanted to
Yes.
do. The person who had been on tenor 2 went to alto 1 because that's what they really wanted to do. So
Right.
you and I got called up to be the low end of the sax section.
Right.
And then Nathan and Robert came up to both play alto 2.
Mm-hmm. Right. Okay, that makes a lot more sense.
Yes. Nathan and Robert
Yeah.
are some of our other friends. And
You've probably seen them in movies we've made.
Probably. Yeah. So my freshman year though, we didn't hang out mainly because I didn't have time for friends because I was going through cancer treatment. I'm fine. It was a bad freshman year. Everybody has a bad year in high school. Mine was my freshman year, and it was not because I got bullied or something.
Yeah.
So I just didn't have time to like meet people.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, in
Yeah.
sophomore year,
Was that? Yeah, that was. So yeah, we sat next to each other, and we found out that we both played Dungeons and Dragons.
yeah.
And we also found, and then you also got into Biff that year.
Yep, I started working for the Boulder International Film Fest.
Yeah. And basically, we started hanging out because of Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
And we played a lot of Dungeons and Dragons.
We did play a lot of D&D. That was back during the 4th edition, which is terrible for everybody. Just
Yep.
if you want, play 3.5, play the 2nd edition, play the original, play 5e. Don't play 4.
Yeah.
I mean,
Don't
actually, you know what? I will say there has been a resurgence of people who really like 4th edition lately. Like just
Really?
online. Yeah.
Huh.
It's just a subset. Like, I don't know. Like, and you know, more power to them. We played great games in 4th edition. The rules were bad, but it doesn't stop you from having a good time.
Yeah.
Time with it,
I mean,
you know?
yeah. And I think that the crowd of people we played with were a lot of video gamey MMO kind of guys.
It's 4th edition is really good for people who are like, I just want it to be kind of clear. I want to like have a tap. It was weird. Whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yes, we played D&D, and then Derek and I found out that we both did
movies.
We both did some film stuff. Yeah, so you were doing Heroics 101. You shot the first couple of episodes. You had me, because we started hanging out with some of the same people too. We had like mutual friends. So you had me come on and do kind of a bit part, kind of an extra sort of role, or kind of both, really. With for like the 4th episode, I think.
Yeah, it was the 4th one we shot, but the 2nd one we aired.
Mm-hmm.
Which
very confusing. But yes, I adore you. When I say this, it was a mess from like a production standpoint. I vaguely remember saying something to you to the effect of like, please let me produce this for you. Like, please just let me do this.
What's funny is
something like that.
This is how I remember it going. We were just standing around like waiting for something to happen, and you just looked. You didn't even look over at me. You just said, "I'm going to produce this, Derek."
Oh, was I that assertive? Wow.
Yeah, you were like, I'm going to produce this, and I was like, please, God, thank you. Like, I need help. I can't do this alone.
Yeah, because then basically after that we started doing, we started putting together shot lists and planning things out. Like, it was still the best we could do, learning as we went, but.
Yeah, for a bunch of 16-year-olds and their friends
with
no money.
Yeah, essentially.
Like when you came on, you were like, look, like how, like, where do you see the show going? Like, what do you want to do with it? What have you been thinking about? And those were things I had not considered. And you helped set deadlines. You helped me make shot lists. You helped coordinate a lot of the extras and a lot of the crew. In addition to acting and helping write some of these episodes too, like you were really doing it all.
The only thing I really, really didn't do was anything close to directing. I just didn't want it. Like, I was like, nah, man, that's not my jam. Oh.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was a real jank show to direct because we had to like frame out all these houses all the time and like do
Yeah.
all those camera tricks. So it was one of those things where even if I didn't want to direct it, it wouldn't make sense because it was already so there were so many like nuances to shooting it so cheaply.
Yeah. Basically, if basically being director and DP, um, it took everything out of you. Like you,
Mhm.
it was so hard.
Yeah, and I did all of post,
Yes, you did do all the posts.
which I learned how to do VFX and sound design for this, which
Yeah.
was something that wasn't previously in my wheelhouse.
No.
But
Very fun though. Very
yeah,
fun thing we did for a few years there.
I know.
And then that following year, after our sophomore year, I gathered you and some of our other friends and just kind of decided we were all in the film festival together now.
Hmm.
Um and it's that was a joy. That was genuinely a joy. And that's where I think we all really, really, really became friends.
Yeah, because
Um
every Tuesday we'd hop in your car, go down to
yep.
Boulder, and then be around other people like us, talking about art and movies and
Yeah.
working with some great people like Ruth and Patty were fantastic.
They were
And
fantastic.
like, the bonding moments of driving in your car and listening to
Yeah.
whatever music was playing,
Yeah, my old fucking Subaru, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ruth and
Rest
Patty
and
were
rip.
our boss. They were bosses of ours essentially. Is
Hmm.
probably the best way to describe them.
Yeah.
And we we did that for a few years and then we kept in touch through college, met up in
Hmm.
between, and now
Yeah.
you're in LA and I'm back in Boulder. Um
Yep. And
yeah.
you podcast as
I
you're
podcast.
and you write and
Yeah.
you don't in like you I mean, do you still compose music? Are you still in a band?
No, I compose music for the podcast.
Okay.
And I play for fun. So I guess I should tell that story briefly since we're just kind of doing like bios here. I went to college for music, and that was both a great choice and a terrible choice. On the one hand, I made it through college, which I'll just let you all in a little secret. If you have a life-threatening disease young, that kind of changes your growth as a person. And one of the ways it changed my growth was like, I don't care about school for shit. Like, I just don't. Uh, I would go to school and I'd feel like it's worthless. I'd get the grades I needed to keep my parents off my back, but no more, no less. Um, so I knew that if I was going to get through college, I had to do something I really, really enjoyed. So I picked music, right? Like I kind of considered film. I was kind of like torn between doing some film and music, and I just kind of like landed on music, not really for any particular reason over film, but I did. And I will say, the school I went to, the teacher I had, my direct professor, beat the love of music out of me. Like he just did. Like somehow he got it all twisted up with my self worth. Like I was playing so much that I would bleed, like literally bleed. Um,
Jeez.
yeah, like I would stop playing when like blood was coming out of my mouth. I'd take a break, maybe I'd eat, and then I'd go back to it. Like it was, it got kind of nightmarish. And so, like, about halfway through that degree, I started leaning in towards singing over playing like the saxophone, which really helped and really helped me get through the rest of that degree without having to like change majors halfway through. Because also, just a heads up, a music degree is a pain. It's a pain in the ass because you have to take like 10 to 12 classes a semester, and you may not be getting a full 15 credits even, because each class is like 1 credit. It's a nightmare, but your schedule's full. Anyways, I digress. So I did that. I really leaned back into my love of tabletop role playing games. And I always kind of like loved podcasts and radio. And then I took some creative writing courses. If I had stayed another year, I probably would have gotten a minor or a major in writing. Just to kind of get through it. So like I came out the other side. The whole time I never really intended to do like I kind of considered for a long time continuing and getting like my master's. Like I applied for graduate school and everything and got in a couple places, and then like I got my acceptance letters and I was so fucking done. Like literally, Gracie handed me an acceptance letter to one of the better schools in the West and in the country for composing music, and I looked at it, saw that I'd gotten accepted. I kind of tossed it aside, and I went back to being the DM, the GM for the game I was playing. Like I was so done at that point that I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to do it at all. So after college, like I've put my saxophone away. I'm looking at it right now. It's in the closet, like literally, like under some like coats and stuff. And on the one hand, that's sad. Like that is sad. But on the other, on my right, on the other, my studio where I'm recording this from is also dominated by a piano. I just kind of went out and bought one, and I play music every day, but it's only for me now. Like I'll compose music, but only for the podcast that I love doing. Like nobody's going to force me or trick me into thinking that this is anything but a joy again. Like that was like the biggest mistake I made in college, was letting someone convince me that my self-worth and my art are the same thing. You know, they're not.
Yeah, no. That's a very important lesson, because I think a lot, like when you are an artist, you are very quick to put a lot of yourself into your work and pour a lot of your time, and it can be very dangerous, like managing that and managing those feelings, because it's very easy to say I'm a terrible person because I made something bad, but did you really make something bad, or did you just make something not up to someone else's standards? And that's a really real fine line. And I'm glad that it sucks that you had to go through that, but I'm glad that you learned that, because that's something that even I still struggle with. But I'm glad that you're able to do it for you, because that's ultimately like in order to be successful at anything, you have to do it for yourself. You have to really love it for what it is, and not for what you or what someone else wants it to be, you know?
Yeah, I mean, totally. Like, and it's like, it's not the same thing as not striving for excellence or looking for your audience necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
Like I still write poetry and fiction, like I do, and I seek to get them published. But when I get a rejection letter now, I don't feel bad about me.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm like, damn it, like like when it's
Yeah,
not the
yeah.
same thing. And like it can even be a little bit of a sting, right? Because like you're right, you do put a lot of yourself into your work, and when someone gives you a rejection like that, like it's like, oh, you didn't like me, but like it's different than being like, oh, and suddenly that makes me a bad person. It's been kind of freeing to 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 kind of come out the other side on that.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's like, it's like an avatar. Like you have to let go of your earthly tethers.
You do have to open that seventh chakra, don't you?
Yeah,
You have to
because
get
it's
there.
like, exactly. It's the only way to like truly enjoy it. Like, because like when you're younger, you enjoy it because you have no concept of what you expect. And the
Mhm.
older you get, you're only beset by more and more expectations that can damage what you do. And unlearning those expectations, or at least learning how to not let them bother you, is really important.
Yeah. It sounds, so you're bringing this up and it's reminding me of a lot of conversations we had in college in particular, where it feels like you struggled with this. Um, you, your voice as like a writer has always been very fantastic, if that makes sense. Like even when you write, like typical like fiction scripts that aren't like literal fantasy or science fiction or speculative fiction, they always have a twinge of the fantastic. Um, and I remember you in college fighting that sometimes, you know, due to like the expectations of film school.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like we both had a really rough time in art school. Like, film school really did kick my ass.
I haven't met a person who went to an art school where it didn't kick their ass in one way or another.
Yeah.
Um,
I think it's a part of the process, right? Cuz like you get your whole world shaken up and then you start to latch onto other things and you sort of have to work your way through the notes to figure out what's really useful for you.
right, because it's not like engineering. So a lot of our friends, Robert and Nathan, our other friend, Mr. Will Cordell, like a lot of our people we know went to engineering school, like a weirdly high
Mhm.
number of them.
Yeah, and Gage too.
Yeah, Gage. Yeah, I know, right? Like a lot of them. There's a right way to do engineering and science. Like there are influences on them, and but like 2 + 2 = 4. You know, like paint plus brush does not equal art. Like, and so the thing is, like, in art school, you are thrown into a sea of influences, your instructors, your peers, uh, the zeitgeist of art at large, um, which is like something I'm fighting against in poetry in particular, which is like for a long time now, poetry has been like angry and sad. Like it just has been. Like you're supposed to put your pain on the page, and I'm just not super interested in doing that. Like not in the way that they ask you to, with like a ton of vitriol and like hate. Uh, so there are certain like places you like my work can't get published. Like no matter how good it is, no matter how like technically good my writing is on the page, if I don't conform to their expectation of what good poetry is, because that's what's popular right now, it will not be published, right? So have you it's so art school is just like all of that condensed, right? Like you just get in there and people like try to take your voice and mold it, right? Like into what they think your voice should be, you know. Sometimes it's bad, like straight up bad. Like one of my professors, he was just bad for my voice as an artist, and then uh another one of my professors, his wife, ironically, was better. She molded my voice in ways, in retrospect, I didn't like, but it was not malicious necessarily. Like her thing was, she wanted me to write longer and longer music. Um, like I wrote a piece once that was like 3 minutes, and I was like, "This is 3 great minutes of choir music." I was like really happy with it, and she made me stretch it into 6. Um, and like I like looking back on, like it was still fine, but I looking back on it, I'm like, why? Why did we do this? Like why did I do this and let her pull me this way? Like what did these 3 minutes add? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. It was it was to her taste. She liked it being 6 minutes. Um, whereas as you pretty well know, I'm obsessed with things that are short. Like I want shorter books, I want shorter movies. Like I would rather have a perfect 45-minute movie or like 2-hour video game than an 80-hour RPG experience and like a 3-hour action epic. Like just give me the thing clearly. So on the other hand, my favorite teacher, my writing teacher, was kind of amazing in the sense that he openly admitted that he has preferences and there are things he likes and that sort of thing, but he's like, I just want you to be honest, you know like I'm not he was a writing teacher, and so he was like, write the thing that you want to write, um and write the thing how you think it should sound. Don't try to please me. And he took grades out of it. Like he took grades out of it completely. Like if you did all the stuff, you were going to get an A, and if you did nothing, you were going to get an F. Like he doesn't hand out like B's or C's or D's. Like they just don't exist in his classes. You either failed his course or you didn't. Um, So he took out all the reason to try and please him for the most part. Like he's a great writer and a great teacher, so you kind of end up wanting to please him. But the thing that that often pleased him most was when he felt like you wrote something that you liked, if that makes sense. Like I remember the day I brought him science fiction that I'd written for the first time. Like before that, I had strictly written poetry for him because I was so nervous about creative writing. I thought I was a bad, like I didn't feel like I was good at it. So I cloaked all my creative writing in like being like, no, I'm writing lyrics. Like I'm writing lyrics for potential choir music. But the first day I brought him science fiction that I'd just kind of written for fun because I felt like it and I was kind of inspired. He was just as excited to see that as he was excited to see like angsty poetry from one of my classmates. And I was like, oh, wow, that's a good teacher.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nurturing versus, deliberating a right versus wrong.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. So have we moved on to topic number 2?
Kind of, yeah. And I think honestly, like, it's hard to talk about who we are without talking about what we do, because what we do is so integral to who we are and how we met.
It's really true. You and I became friends over music and film and writing and just and role-playing games, tabletop role-playing games.
Yeah. A lot, like all the things that we still do today, which is pretty great. Like it's one of those things where like when you're a kid, you hope that you can still do fun things with your friends. And, having it been a decade and we've still managed to, play the occasional game or collaborate on the occasional film or podcast, like what we're doing now, it's great. It's really nice. And it's like, we've talked about this before, but it's when you collaborate with friends, there's a certain level of trust and a camaraderie that comes with it. You have that shared experience of, being on set when the rain hit, or being on set when the snow hit, or being at the film festival when, yeah, man. So, I mean, that's, I think the important part is that like, we've talked about this before about how we don't keep in touch often enough, but that's just the nature of life. And I think it's important to, remember. It's important to remember the people that were there with you at the beginning. Cause like, like I'll be real, like without you, dude, like I never would have made that web series, and I never would have made all those films we made, and I never would have made The Wedding Crasher, which arguably is the only reason why I got to go to film school. And like you shot that thing, you like never DP'd, and you shot that thing. You were like, sure, I'll do it. And that film is what changed everything for me. So like, our lives and our creative work together is so integral to just everything that's happened, which is pretty wild.
That's true. What all did I do for that film? I'm trying to remember now.
You did the soundtrack?
I did.
That was one of the first things you did the soundtrack on.
Yeah,
and that started the trend of you doing the soundtrack for a bunch of films I made after that. Because you did the soundtrack for Bros of the Realm, Spoils of War, You and Me, and like 2 other shorts that I can't remember off the top of my head.
So I composed. I did a lot of I did a lot of the photography.
Yeah.
And I did produce that one, didn't I?
Yes, you did produce that.
I still have the shot list. Oh my god, I still have the shot list.
Yeah, you sent that to me.
I can see the book it's in from here.
Oh, the old book. You also did the kind task of driving me around to different thrift stores to find the wedding dress with Taylor.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, we got into a car accident.
Yep. And I felt so bad.
Oh.
Because that was just so unexpected. And it was all because I said, let's go to a different thrift store instead of just getting the dress that I wanted. Well, we ended up going back to that other store because I kept saying, let's go to another store.
Yeah, but that woman cut me off. She cut me off.
Yeah, it was
so
not your
bad. That was
fault.
not my fault. I did.
Yeah, you did everything
I
you could have.
Ugh.
Yeah. Like, yeah, but like you did that, and on top of that, like, you also did the car stunt where you drove the car at me as I ran down the street.
That was really stressful. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who had the camera?
I think either Evan or Taylor held the camera, or maybe
Yeah.
Will. One of those three held the camera
I
for
think it
that
was
shot.
Taylor. I think it was Taylor who held the camera.
Yeah, because that was a pickup day.
Yeah, that was a pickup day. She held the camera.
She wasn't,
in
because
the
I was like,
back
"There's no way
seat.
she." Yeah,
Yeah,
I was like, "There's no way she would have."
The funny thing though is the car looks like it's moving at like a normal speed, but I was driving like 5 miles an hour.
I
you
know. Yeah, it was not. It looks a lot scarier in the movie. Also, because I hit the car with my hands.
You did. Oh, we did a turn. That's the thing we did is I turned so that like the world would move in two directions
Yeah.
at the same time, and then you hit the car with your hands really hard, like it was right. Mm. We spent hours in that church.
Yeah, dude. Making movies and making music. Like making movies in high school with you and the gang was genuinely, it's like, in my opinion, that like just sort of going out and shooting it with your friends, that's like the most pure expression of filmmaking out there. And if you can find a way to combine that with the resources of like a Hollywood film, or maybe an indie film, then I think you've really got something special. And it never really changes. You're always making films with your friends.
I've been thinking about that more and more because like music in college was a very solitary experience. And writing, like the way I do writing now, is also a very solitary experience. With writing, I quite like it, honestly. Like I'm like, this is nice. Like I'm just making a thing as I want to make it. I don't have to worry about anything else. But making music that way was sad because before that I'd been in bands and musical duos and things. Like music was a thing that I did with other people. And when I composed music for films, especially at first, it was for people I liked and people I cared about. But in college, music was something you did with yourself, and you would come and you would be part of a whole for a little while, and then it would be over. And so it when I got out of college, I was like, oh my God, I want to make art with people again. And so that's what the podcast I do, which I should say the name of finally, which is Diceology. Or before that, it was the Level 1 podcast, but it's Diceology now, like dice, like the science of dice. When in reality, it's a combination of the word anthology and dice. Not important. I realized I wanted to be working with people again who I enjoyed my time with, like we did in high school. And so to that end, I still work with one person that we worked with a lot, a Mr. Will Bangs, but also someone I met in college. Her name's Natalie, and she is, outside of working with you, I've never enjoyed working with somebody more. Just hands down, she's a star. Just like. Like I always think about when you make art with somebody, it's kind of like being in a romantic relationship. Like you're like, hey, but it's also like kind of like having children from the beginning. It's like, you know what I mean? Like it's like, hey, do you want to like make something that really matters to both of us immediately together? And like have to like
that is
share it, like
that is a great way to put it. That is a totally bonkers way to put it, but you're right.
And so
it's
like,
not that bonkers.
And so like with her, it's similar where it's just like, nope, full trust. Like if I was like, hey, I need you to handle this half of it, I would just be like, great, she's got it. and I move on. Like in the same way that I used to trust you with that sort of thing.
Mhm.
And so yeah, it's been nice to work with people again and make art with people again. Um,
Yeah.
with all the joys and aggravations that comes with, right? Because when you're together, you make something that's more than the sum of its parts, right? But you have to get everybody in that room, so to speak, or on that Skype call now, I guess. Skype is dead. Zoom is the thing. I remember. I live in the modern times, I swear. Do you remember when at the beginning of this, before we started recording, you said, hey, you can swear in this. If it slips out, that's fine.
I think like 2 minutes in, you said bullshit. So
I think I did. I think I really did.
and to be honest, it's like I wouldn't have it any other way. You curse not as bad as a sailor, but you definitely when you curse, it's very poignant and very pointed. If that, I think pointed is the right word. And
That's very nice of you to say.
like yeah, like when you curse, it matters. Well, you know what I
Well,
mean?
I fucking appreciate that, Derek.
There, yeah, exactly like that.
They're just words. They're just words.
Yeah, words that you can associate value to, and everybody associates different values with different words.
They really do. They really do.
And that's the
All
power
right.
of that.
Are we coming up on time?
Yeah, we are coming up on time. So I think we've covered a lot of ground in terms of who we are and what we do. Do you have any final thoughts before we say goodbye?
Make rent, make art, help others do the same.
That should be a sticker and a merch brand that you should sell. Just like on a t-shirt in big bold text.
I'm pretty sure I stole it from somebody else, so I won't do that, but I super believe in it.
Yeah, I feel you. And to that point, like, just go out and do it and
Yeah,
keep in touch with people because people are what makes art fun. Without,
totally.
So yeah, that's it for this week. You can follow the show at Dane and Derek Show. I don't know what that handle will be. I'll fix that later.
Fair enough.
But you can follow me at Benig-Aiello. That's DerekAiello everywhere. At Benig-Aiello everywhere. And Dane, where can people find where you are and what you do?
I suck at doing this. I hate self-promotion so much. But please go listen to my podcast, Diceology, like DIC-ology, on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Stitcher. I haven't even said what the show is. I spent so many hours doing this. It's an actual play podcast where we play tabletop RPGs. Think Critical Role, The Adventure Zone, Friends of the Table, that kind of stuff. You can also follow me personally and find like links to my writing and that sort of thing at Dane_Fogdall on Twitter. That's DANE_FOGDALL because my name is spelled weird. Did I do that right? I think I did that right.
I think you did that right. If not, we can always re-record the Taylor at the end and get our socials right because I definitely butchered mine. But
fair enough.
Cool. Well, Dane, it was good hanging out with you. Sooner than the last few times we've hung out.
True. That is, yeah.
And hopefully we'll do this more frequently.
Agreed.
Yeah, we can talk about that.
It was a good time.
Yeah, we can talk about that after. But thank you all for hanging out with us, and we'll catch you next time.
Can be found in the episode
description. Bye.
See ya.
Quick editor's note before I let you all go. This was a really wild episode to listen back to. I didn't realize just how much ground we covered in this first episode, and that we just kind of were pretty chill. It was pretty close to our regular runtime of 42 something minutes. And whatever I did with the audio editing in this first episode, it's really crisp and clear. I don't know how I did it, and I'm gonna have to go back to the old files to see whatever I did, because it was really nice sounding. Otherwise, anyway, you don't need to hear me talk about random editing things. Thank you all for listening to this week's retro throwback origin story episode that we had to release because of whatever, hardware issues that we were facing. The usual tech gods just throwing down lightning bolts at our devices. But with all that said, you can find my website, Benig-Aiello.com. It's got all my movies, my other shows, podcasts, whatnot you can find and listen to and watch. And Dane is at DaneWrites.com. You can find his Substack and his podcast, Asology, there. Go listen to those, subscribe to his Substack, read his stuff. It's great. And lastly, my film, Synagogue, that I had talked briefly on the podcast about doing and then making, is going to be playing at a film festival in Oregon this April. So keep an eye out for film festivals under the name of Disorient Asian American Film Festival of Oregon, because you can watch the film virtually as part of its shorts program, The Philippine X Lens. It'll be super fun. There's passes you can get to different shorts programs. You can get tickets to different individual films. And most importantly, you get to see the movie before it hits public screens in a year. Because that's what happens when it's in the festival circuit. It's got to stay in the festival circuit and go through all the festivals. And this is its premiere. So I'll have links all over the place whenever they're applicable in these next few episodes. But yeah, thank you all so much. And we will catch you next week. Fingers crossed.